Hello, everybody. My name is meteorologist Hutch Johnson. I am joining you on a night when we have high plains storms and will promise to deliver at least chances of tornadoes, a very large hail, and some damaging wind gusts that could exceed 80 miles per hour. The storms are getting started. We have watches and warnings, your forecast, and it's all coming up next. I'm a meteorologist of the Northern Plains. I've been talking about weather for the last 30 years up here, teaching college-age students meteorology for the better part of 17 years and working a bit in research meteorology as well. If you like what you see here, I ask you throw a thumbs up and a like. If you have a question, I'm monitoring that right now. Just drop a line and let me know where you're watching from. I'll be happy to try to answer that in this live broadcast. But let's get started with the forecast first and then to the live details of what's going on right now on the radar. Here is a look at some model guidance as we trek our way through the evening hours. The forecast shows a very large area of low pressure spinning in the northern Rockies right now. And in Montana, we have some showers and thunderstorms that are strong. These are expected to curl their way through the northern plains tonight. But right now, eastern parts of Wyoming and eastern Colorado have the storms that will be pushing their way off to the east. And it's these initial storms that are forming right now that have that greatest risk of becoming strong to severe. These will trek out into Nebraska tonight, backward C-shape here, becoming quite a wind event moving out of the high plains. We could see some hail as well. Where's the risk of tornadoes the greatest? Actually, it's up in Montana where there's some high plains storms that have some spin in the environment they're forming in up there. I'll show you more on that later, but the best chance of any of that stuff will be between now and about 10 to 11 o'clock at night for the tornadoes. Now, as we go through the overnight hours, wind will be the main threat as it pushes into places like the western Dakotas, the Black Hills, and central South Dakota, before really starting to wane in intensity, pushing into the eastern part of the Dakotas. Central parts of Nebraska and central Kansas could still see some stout thunderstorms. Remember, this cool, dry air rolling off the high plains of the Rockies is diving into some moisture-rich air in the central plains. And look at the big sky country of Montana taking on some heavy amounts of rain all night long, and it lasts because this sit-and spinner, that storm system, is going to stay put in the northern Rockies for the better part of the day. As we go through your Wednesday or hump day, we'll have scattered showers and storm chances in the afternoon. That risk will shift off to the east into eastern parts of the Dakotas and parts of eastern as well, Nebraska. Now, the best chance, though, may indeed become once again on Thursday as these storms push into places like central Minnesota, Minneapolis, and toward Des Moines. We'll have another chance of some severe weather. That is a look at the basics in the forecast. Now let's take a look at our Storm Prediction Center risk area, and this is going to highlight the Rocky Mountains. Where you see the orange, this is what we call it's an enhanced risk. It's a level 3 on a 5-level scale of severe weather. What does that mean? We could see numerous severe thunderstorms in this area. And the reason it's enhanced is not necessarily for widespread tornadoes. This is enhanced for damaging straight line wind potential that's in the atmosphere. So because of that, wind gusts could exceed in this area 80 miles per hour in a few of these storms, and they're firing right now. That's surrounded by a yellow area, a level 2 on a 5-level scale of severe weather. And again, it's that northern plains of Montana that will bring the greatest risk for a few of those storms, causing the possibility for some isolated tornadoes. Not going to be a widespread problem, but the chance is there, and it's at about a 2% chance. Now, anywhere in this yellow area, we could see hail up to around 2 inches and wind gusts up to around 65 or 70 miles per hour from a few of these storms. Notice eastern Wyoming and the high plains out there by Devil's Tower into the Black Hills of South Dakota and in towards the Badlands of South Dakota as well. This extends all the way down into New Mexico, by the way. So for you folks outside of Roswell, north of there towards Trinidad, that's where the best chance of the storms will be in your neck of the woods. By the way, the green area means storms might flirt with severe weather. It's not likely, but a couple of storms could have 1-inch diameter hail and 60 mile per hour gusts. 1-inch hail, 58 mile per hour gusts is the threshold for severe weather. So that's what's going on for the day today. Now let's take a look at what's going on with the radar right now. And to do that, we're going to look at a regional radar here. so we can see what's going on. And why not put up the watches as well? So for right now, we have watches that are issued for parts of eastern Wyoming, and let's go in just a little bit closer, all the way through Scottsbluff, Nebraska, and the I-80 corridor through North Platte. That area is under the gun for some very windy thunderstorms tonight. Reading up on the advisory of the watch here, I can show you that the details of this watch are for it to be in effect as we go through the evening hours tonight until 9 o'clock Mountain Time. And again, the threats mainly are going to be those storms that have hail upwards to 1.5 to 2 inches in diameter and gusty winds. This goes all the way into Burlington, Colorado, by the way. So the northeast quadrant of North Dakota also under the gun here, as well as parts of western Kansas. That includes Colby, and not far from you folks out there in Burlington, Colorado. Now, a separate watch has been issued for this cluster of areas from Trinidad, Colorado, straight down towards Roswell, and that watch is in effect until 8 p.m. Central Time. Again, we could have some dangerous gusts up to 75 miles per hour and 1.5-inch diameter hail from that particular area. And again, let's see if I can pull up the details. This is 80 mile per hour gusts from the high plains of Colorado and Wyoming into the high plains of Nebraska, as well as parts of Kansas. And we're talking about hail that could be around 1 inch. So the main threat tonight in those areas is going to be the gusty straight line winds. Now back to the radar we go, and we'll take a look at what's going on here. And we'll detail this with some storm reports we've already gotten from the high plains of Colorado. And we're talking here about that Palmer Ridge area between the Denver area and Colorado Springs as one area where we've already seen an abundant amount of wind reports from these storms. So let's go ahead and take a look at that and the active warnings in Colorado before we move on. Some of these local storm reports approaching 62 mile per hour gusts. That's severe from the Weather Service office in Boulder, Colorado. This was in the Elbert area, I should say, Elbert County near Kiowa. So 14 miles to the northeast of Kiowa there in Colorado, reporting that gust. Now out on the plains near Lyman, 61 mile per hour thunderstorm gust has been reported there. A 75 mile per hour gust reported right here 9 miles northwest of Rush from a storm that was reported by the National Weather Service office out there in Pueblo, Colorado. And again, as we look across the region, we're seeing Colorado Springs, Fountain on that southern I-25 corridor there just east on the high plains is where most of those early storms produced some burps of wind that were redonky-donk. Now these storms are moving in toward the Kit Carson area. And so we do have a severe thunderstorm warning that is in effect. This is for Kit Carson. This line of storms here is severe, is moving off to the east and generally heading towards Flasher, where we did get a thunderstorm wind gust report of 52 miles per hour. That's just below severe, but it was measured. And we can have winds in between the thunderstorms and in between the measuring devices that are even higher than that. So where we see the pink pixels here, that's some details about where we may be seeing a hail core there. But again, hail is not the main threat tonight. Let's take a look at the details. Nickel-sized hail and gusts up to 60 miles per hour in this yellow area or polygonal area along and south of I-70 in eastern Colorado heading out towards Burlington. Now we have some alerts or advisories to let you know about for some storms down there in the south. But first, this one is also warned that's heading in the general direction of Eads. I want to point out this backwards C shape. That is called a Boeing line segment. These tall towers are collapsing with rain and hail, and a gust of wind blows out in front of them. So the winds in this storm heading towards Eads will come from west to east. And again, 60 mile per hour gusts will be the main threat there. From Springfield and Los Animas, we're expecting some strong storms there. These are going to stay below severe criteria, or at least they are right now, but they still are very close to that. Flirting with it, as I like to say. 1/2-inch diameter hail, 55 mile per hour gusts moving northeast at 45 miles per hour. That's a look at the high plains out there. Let's look up in Sterling at the 76 corridor between the I-80 corridor and the metro area of Denver, and also DIA. You can see here the strong storm between Sterling and Fort Morgan is working its way. This puppy moving more northward right now. So that one is moving northward away from the I-76 corridor with its threat. The National Weather Service says that this storm is going to be capable potential of those 60 mile per hour gusts as it lifts up to the north. The movement northerly 41 miles per hour. So think of that. The storm's moving along at 41 miles per hour. If it burps out rain and hail, winds could easily gust to around 60 miles per hour from that storm. So that's a look at what's going on there. Scotts Bluff, Nebraska, you have some heaters out there to the west of you. Which direction are they moving? Let's see if we can put that up. And let me put the timeline up here for you as well. This timeline, by the way, is not mountain time like you're on out there in the Scotts Bluff area. It is central time. I should say Colorado anyways. So Scotts Bluff, you have this storm making its way through. We take a look at the loop of radar data here. Let me go ahead and turn that on and back and see if I can get this to loop for me here a little bit. So it's going to load up and you get a feel for the direction of movement of a few of these cells, generally northerly. So moving due north and away from Scotts Bluff, it's much of the activity there, but that could be producing some hail as well. On the I-80 corridor, you know that saddle in the mountains between the areas of northern Colorado and the Cheyenne area. You get into this Rock Springs and I-80 saddle, and there can be some significant wind gusts with or without thunderstorms, but these are some nasty gusts of wind here, reported to be at 65 miles per hour. 3 miles northwest of Arlington was that particular gust from a weather station that measured that. So very gusty winds associated with these storms there. All right, we did talk about a risk of some severe weather in the Big Sky country of Montana. Let's see what's going on up here as we get up toward Gillette. We do have an active severe thunderstorm warning just near the Devil's Tower, and this is right on the I-90 corridor, going through the Hewlett area, Newcastle. This storm has just become severe. So let me go ahead and stop this from looping, and we'll take a look at what the details are for you folks. And this is, again, some storms rolling through the high country there, with wind being one of the main threats, 60 mile per hour and 3/4 inch diameter hail or less expected. So mainly a wind gust threat that's heading right toward the highway corridor there outside of Spearfish and Sundance. So this is right in that Devil's Tower area out there between Gillette and Spearfish. If you're in the path of these storms, these ones will have winds coming from south to north, so you'll want to prepare for that. Batten down the hatches, tie down the lawn furniture, and don't park the car under trees where the winds could blow it down. Oh, we got a new warning out here in northeast Montana for Glendive, Montana. Now, this is in Dawson County in northeast Montana and eastern parts of the high plains. They're forming right over the city and moving north. We did get a gust report there, 51 miles per hour measured by the station there at the Glendive Airport, as a matter of fact. And that's moving towards Ritchie right now. Let's take a look at the details from the Glasgow National Weather Service forecast office. This storm is moving again north, gusts to around 50 miles per hour. That's not for the warning. Let me see. Let me get at that. Okay, severe thunderstorm warning for 1 1/4 inch diameter hail, greater than 1 inch hail, and we're expecting 60 mile per hour gusts from this storm system right here. So that is moving to the north at 45 miles per hour. So let me go ahead and pull in a single site radar data here and pull up a little bit more detail about that storm there near the Glendive area. Glendive, Montana sits a long ways from radar sites. It's a long ways from Billings, over 200 miles. It's a long ways from Bismarck, over right at about 200 miles. So being so far away from the areas of concern there means that we're going to see higher up in the clouds from our radar scans here. So let me go to the Glasgow radar. I got to turn on a couple of these radar sites so I can see them here. Pardon me while I switch radars here. We'll switch into Glasgow. They're a little bit closer. Now, what we can see here is some high intensity reflectivities in blue. That's the hail core with this particular storm on the latest scan. Again, moving more north towards the Ritchie area. It looks like it's going to miss the Sydney area. And look at the, let's see if we can loop this just a little bit to get a feel for the movement of the storm. I don't think it's due north. It does look like the polygon has been steered or leaned. Yeah, it's leaning a little bit toward that Ritchie area. So with the movement of this particular storm at a crisp rate of 45 miles per hour, I'll go ahead and take a look and see if I can give you some tracking on this device and show you when I think this storm may make its way in toward the Ritchie area. So here is the leading edge. Let me stop this. We'll pause it from looping. Here's the hail core right here. See if I can put that on. We'll go ahead and draw that hail core. So at the leading edge of the hail core right here, I think I'm doing this. Okay, here we go. Sorry about that. It's not letting me draw like I thought it was supposed to here. So my apologies. I'll try one more time. I'm supposed to be drawing a manual storm track, and here is the hail core. Nope, it's not letting me. So we'll basically say it's moving in that general direction of Richie, and it's moving at a clip of 45 miles per hour. I'll get another tool out here to measure the distance, and I'll do some calculation for it since the tracker is being a little bit shy on me right now. So here is a look at the line distance between here and if we want to find Richie, it's right up here. Okay, so between there and Richie, 25 miles per hour. So it's right at about a half hour away from you and Richie on the outside. And this little core of hail that's developing on that north side could get to you a little bit sooner than later. So that's a strong cell right there. It's severe warned. If you're in the path of that, be prepared for wind gusts that could be 60 miles per hour, but some very sizable hail as well with that particular cell. Now let's look at this stuff forming up here north of Highway 2. This is Poplar, Montana, Culbertson working its way on up towards Scobie. There is some heavy intensity heading in the general direction of Flaxville, north of Brockton, Montana, if you're familiar with this. Again, moving north, probably at about that same clip of about 40 miles per hour for movement. Those storms just developing. This area, by the way, right here is in an area where there is some shear or spin in the atmosphere. And if I do, let me give this a shot here. I'll see if this works for me. But the National Weather Service's outlook for storms today up here in the Northern Plains, let's see if I can turn on their tornado risk. Here is the 2% risk area for tornadoes today. So for these storms in northeast Montana, there's at least a little bit of spin or shear in the atmosphere. Let's go right to some of the details on that right now. So I'll turn off this look at the tornado probability area. You get the feel. These storms are forming in that area, and it will be the best chance of seeing any kind of spinning from these storms tonight out in northeast Montana, from these ones that are early and form in isolated nature. So they have all of the energy in the atmosphere to work with. Linda, good to have you on board from Bemidji. When will the storms be in Bemidji? Not tonight. You and Paul Bunyan can take it easy for tonight. I want to look at the spin in these storms. I've got a little tool to do that. Let me turn off this Storm Prediction Center stuff, and let's look at some analyses of the atmosphere here. So we're going to look at that. And we're going to turn on this mesoanalysis data, and let's look at the spin in the atmosphere. So let's look at a couple. First, let's look at the lift in the atmosphere. So this is the energy to cause the rising motion to create these thunderstorms. And you can see right here from western parts of North Dakota through Williston and the oil patch Sydney, right out here. This is where the lift is the greatest, and these storms are forming right along that boundary. Now, we have winds that are coming from the south, so they have some humidity or moisture in them, but we don't have an abundant amount of moisture in those areas as well. When we take a look at some spin in the lower levels of the atmosphere, storm relative helicity, we're going to take a look at that. And, the levels here, let me go ahead and query. These are on the order of 150 to 200 meters per second. So there is some shear in this area where these storms are firing. So now that we know that, and this is calculated off of a model, by the way, we don't have this many instruments that can calculate this on a pinpoint by pinpoint basis, but it does give us an idea. Look at this level out here, the spin or shear in the atmosphere near Bozeman to Lewistown, Montana, Great Falls included, over 300. So there's a little bit more spin calculated by the models there. That said, let's turn that off and take a look at the velocity or spin in these storms right quick here before we wrap this up. And I will get out to the Carolinas too, because some tropical weather there is wreaking havoc in that area. Regina in Saskatchewan all the way out to your west, we're seeing some storms there. But let's see if I can turn on the storm velocities here, the radial velocities. So what we're looking at here is motion towards Glasgow in green and away from Glasgow in red. And in the storm that's near the Glendive area, as we take you in a little bit closer, we're seeing just these little pixels of green and red next to each other. Not overly concerning to Hutch, myself, with regards to that. I'm going to go up in elevation angle on the scan here, and we do still see that there is some shear or spin as we go up in elevation angle scan, meaning that it's an organized updraft that has a little bit of rotation to it. It does not mean a tornado is on the ground, but there's spin in the environment, and it's showing up there at least in a weak fashion. Now, this storm up here in northeast parts of Montana, north of Brockton and Poplar, see the brighter colors right here? Taking a look at that, that's a little bit more intense shear. You have motion away from Glasgow here in the bright reds and motion towards Glasgow in the greens. So that is an area of spin in that storm. Now, is that going up in the cloud? Can we see it at heights? It's a lot weaker at the next elevation scan up. And it's still present here as we go up even one step farther to about a 1.5 to 1.3 degree elevation angle scan. So there is some spin in that puppy out there in northeast Montana, and that storm moving north at about 40 miles per hour is moving away from the Brockton and Poplar areas, very small towns on Highway 2, and heading up towards Scobie and in that general vicinity, showing some signs of rotation. Looking out to the west, nothing going on near Livingston, nothing going on out there in the area of the enhanced spin. So we got to have a thunderstorm to start spinning and produce a tornado, and that's not going on out there. Okay, quick look at the storms that are taking place out in the southeast. We do have flood warnings aplenty out here. Let's get to a closer Raleigh radar out there in North Carolina, South Carolina, and take a look at the Virginias as well. And what we're seeing here, let's go back to a regular look at the radar from this site. Now what you're looking at are some showers and thunderstorms with locally heavy rain continuing not far from Virginia Beach. Here we do have a flash flood warning there. Through Raleigh and points north, we have a flash flood warning, and also out to the west out here, we're seeing Mountain Airy area with thunderstorms aplenty, heavy rain locally on an area that's already been doused with rain. Now we can take a look at the storm total precipitation amounts in these areas just to get a feel for how much rain has fallen in this area. And where you see the blues here, this is some heavy rain. So it really does track along nicely with where the National Weather Service has issued the flash flood warnings. But there's more rain coming in these areas north of Wake Forest, north of Durham, north of King, all the way out toward Eden and points south. So a lot of very heavy rain out along the East Coast. And look at this, Elizabeth City, flash flood warnings for you and a ton of rain. How much is that blue, by the way? Let me show you, and then we'll go ahead and sign off for this broadcast. But 5 inches of estimated rainfall in and around the Elizabeth City area has produced some significant flooding concerns there. Off the coast of Florida, we have some very heavy rain that's fallen out there today. Look at the rain happening out in the high desert out there, Albuquerque and points north, some very heavy rainfall. And look at parts of Idaho Falls and Idaho, Boise, Idaho, seeing some heavy rains out there, 1 to 2 inches of rain falling there, estimated by the Doppler radar. That's a look at the national weather right now. I'm meteorologist Hutch Johnson. I sure appreciate you watching. If you like what you've seen here, I appreciate the likes. Those do help me a great deal. And if you'd like to be notified of when I'm going live on this channel, please go ahead and hit the subscribe button right there on your YouTube channel. I'd love to have you back again sometime. If you have an idea for Hutch's Weather or would like me to cover something else, let me know in the comments below. But until next time, stay tuned to me here on Hutch's Weather and hutchesweather.com, where you can find the latest weather, upload your photos of weather in your area anytime, no matter whether you're there. I invite you to visit Hutch's Weather.